This is Rummy's Corner. Following Wardley's biggest victory to date against Parker, with the expectation being that Wardley is next in line to challenge Usyk, I see a lot of fans expressing the idea that beating Wardley does nothing for Usyk's heavyweight legacy. So the question, does beating Wardley enhance Usyk's heavyweight legacy? The simple answer, for me at least, is yes. Of course it would. Absolutely, positively, no doubt about it whatsoever. For the purpose of this video, working under the assumption that Usyk beats Wardley, which I certainly do not believe is a given, but operating under the assumption that Usyk beat Wardley in his next fight, I have no doubt it would amplify Usyk's heavyweight legacy, at least to some degree. We're not talking about anything Usyk did at cruiserweight, which adds to his overall legacy, but has no impact on his heavyweight legacy. And let's be clear, Usyk does have a heavyweight legacy. That won't change if he suddenly decides to retire tomorrow. And for me, it wouldn't even change if he went on to suffer a couple of losses, as I tend not to hold late career losses against aging all-time greats, and Usyk is already at an age where most heavyweight greats from the past suffered steep decline. At this point, Usyk can only add to what he's done if he continues fighting and continues winning against top 10 ranked challengers. The thing about Usyk's legacy is that it's a little thin on the whole. There isn't a whole lot there, not much depth and variety. The pair of wins against both Fury and AJ are era-defining stuff. Those victories are solid. Then you got the 2 victories against Dubois, 2 good wins, even if Dubois' position as a mandatory in their first encounter was a bit dubious. The win in the rematch carries a bit more weight for sure, but the biggest wins were still against AJ and Fury at the time he faced them. And there you have it. The fact that Usyk has only faced 3 opponents in championship bouts at heavyweight, that alone inherently means beating Wardley will elevate his heavyweight standing, even if just a little. It would be another title defense, bringing his total to 6, which would equal the great Rocky Marciano's tally. But more importantly, it would add another victory against a legit top 10 heavyweight if the fight happens next. It would also provide Usyk with the opportunity to beat another undefeated top heavyweight, his other such win coming in his first fight against Fury. A lot of people will say it would depend on what Wardley goes on to do after Usyk retires that will determine the quality of a would-be victory against Wardley at this time. I guess that's true to some extent, but it's the kind of thing I think gets overstated. If Usyk beats Wardley right now, it's a legacy-enhancing victory for me regardless of what Wardley did after. Take for example when Lennox beat Michael Grant. At that time, Grant was an undefeated heavyweight, almost universally recognized as the most deserving title challenger for Lennox, and he was coming off of a career-best victory against Andrew Golota. Lewis made easy work of Grant, stopping him in round 2, and Grant's career fell apart after that. In retrospect, in my opinion, Lewis doesn't get as much credit for beating Grant as he deserved. If Usyk were to beat Wardley, and Wardley's career went downhill after that, it would be the same type of thing. It might be held in low esteem after the fact, but that doesn't change the fact that Grant was a top-rated, undefeated challenger when Lewis beat him. And for me, it wouldn't change the fact that Usyk would be facing the very same situation now with Wardley. Incidentally, aside from not getting enough credit for beating Grant, I don't think Lewis gets enough credit for his win against Golota either. Looking at it from a different angle, after Bernard Hopkins lost a razor-thin split decision against Joe Calzaghe, Joe retired after one more fight, whereas Bernard went on to do sensational things throughout his 40s, making boxing history time and time again. That no doubt added credibility to Calzaghe's win over Hopkins, although some fans inexplicably play that out as if Calzaghe would have automatically beaten every man Hopkins beat after that, which of course doesn't necessarily work because styles make fights and different night, different fight. Point being, if Usyk beat Wardley, and Wardley went on to do great things after hypothetically losing, the victory could be retroactively held in higher esteem, because Hopkins is undoubtedly the most impressive victory on Calzaghe's resume, and what Hopkins did after the fact amplified that point. But had Hopkins went on a downslide instead, kinda like Roy, it's the type of thing that may not have been looked upon in the same light, rightly or wrongly. And I think it would have been wrongly in that scenario, because Hopkins was still held in high esteem going into that one. At the end of the day, Wardley is undefeated. He is coming off the single greatest victory of his career to date, where indeed, each of his last 3 victories were arguably his best, with each subsequent win better than the last. He's a powerhouse puncher with an unorthodox approach, and he seems to be steadily improving every time out, as evidenced by his win against Parker, where he was doing a lot of little new things that added to his game. Feinting better, jabbing better, moving better, and so on, where I thought his overall approach, tactics, and execution were better than ever. Sure, his resume is very thin. You have Hooney, largely unproven as a pro, and Parker, a former champion who was on a hell of a winning streak, but Parker was universally recognized as the most deserving challenger for Usyk going in, so that was a big one. I personally still believe that Cabiel might be a touch more deserving than Wardley at this point, but the direction the wind is blowing seems to indicate that Usyk Wardley is far more likely in the immediate future, and I believe it would be a great fight. And I do not necessarily believe it would be the walk in the park for Usyk that many are expecting, even if Usyk would be the rightful big favorite going in. So yes, beating Wardley would add to Usyk's heavyweight legacy, no doubt about it from my take. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed and have a wonderful night. This is Rummy's Corner.